This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. What I'm looking at today is 2021's Nightmare Alley, directed by Guillermo del Toro, based on the book by William Lindsay Gresham. And keep in mind, as I said, this came out in 2021. Within the same period of time, Spider-Man No Way Home came out. So let's just say Nightmare Alley was a bit of a flop. It cost $16 million to produce, and it made just over $24 million worldwide. Didn't do too well, despite the fact that Del Toro was coming off of the Academy Award-winning success of The Shape of Water just a few years prior. And I myself knew of Nightmare Alley, didn't see it in theaters because, to be totally honest, I didn't expect it to vanish as quickly as it did. But having seen it, this is probably some of the scariest stuff Guillermo del Toro has ever produced. And this is a man who loves monsters. And I should add, Nightmare Alley is about monsters, just not quite the monsters you might envision from the director. Though it's an, as I said, fascinating movie. Visually, it's gorgeous to look at. I believe it takes place in the 50s or 60s, and it has the visual stylings that Guillermo del Toro is known for. And I should mention, I said it cost $60 million. This movie looks double that price. It looks good. That being said, I understand why it didn't do well. First off, as I said, it came out when Spider-Man No Way Home was sucking the oxygen out of the box office. Another problem is that it's an odd movie to quantify. I believe it's been described as a noir, but it's a genuinely strange movie. In mostly a good way, but in some ways not a good way. Nightmare Alley revolves around a man named Stanton Carlyle, played by Bradley Cooper. And his performance is such an odd one, in the sense that he's so inert as a character, which is really odd. And I assume a deliberate choice, because Bradley Cooper, no matter what you may think of the man, is not Keanu Reeves. He can play emotion really well when he chooses to. Now, having seen the movie, part of me was thinking that maybe he's a sociopath and has no emotion, or emotion only to get what he wants. In other words, he's pretty much stoic, but if he needs to act to achieve a goal, he will. Therefore, he emotes. Though, the thing is, the movie is truly problematic because of this inert nature of the character. It only comes alive, I want to say, in the latter half of the movie, and then it just barrels through with a vengeance. But until that time, it just kind of sits. And it's so weird. And I've been trying to understand why that's the case. As I said, part of me assumed that it was deliberate and it's meant to depict a sociopath. But it was a bad choice. And it makes this movie much harder to watch than it should be. And having seen it, I know how you can fix it. I should say that the movie begins with Stanton Carlyle dragging a body. It's wrapped up, you don't know anything about it, and he's dragging it into a hole in one of the rooms of the house he happens to be in, which he sets ablaze and leaves. It's a very visually evocative and beautiful scene in a way, but it also doesn't give you any information about what just happened. It looks almost like a Viking funeral. Now, obviously it wasn't, but it had that feel to it, which I don't think is a good feel to have because it doesn't accurately reflect what just happened. Though in any case, we don't know why it happened or where Stanton Carlyle is going at this point. though he's wandering about and eventually ends up at a carnival. He eventually joins said carnival, and he learns to become a mentalist, which is just a bunch of tricks to make groups think that he has some type of psychic ability. Though Stanton Carlyle, if anything, is very ambitious. So he moves on from the carnival essentially, taking another performer with him, and they trade their wares among the more affluent members of society, which ends in serious disaster. Though, as I said, there is such an inertness to the way Bradley Cooper acts in this movie. It's also worth mentioning that Bradley Cooper produced this movie with Guillermo del Toro. And to continue that inertness theme further, certain members of the carnival die under dubious circumstances, but it's implied that Stanton Carlyle may have done it. But you never actually see him doing these things, which means it could have been an accident. The guy is so amoral that he would kill if the need arose, no doubt about it. But it's not definitively shown. This is also a problem because watching it, I didn't know if he was the actual killer. So it makes everything that followed kind of mildly off-putting because I don't know if he's really a bad person or not, despite the throwing a body in a hole and burning a house down. It just doesn't give you enough information to take an opinion about this guy. Not really. And so what could have been done to change this is that at the end of the movie, there's a scene that gives you a little more background into the life of Stanton Carlyle. Particularly, it gives you more information about that body that was tossed in a hole before he set the house afire. That is important, and we should have seen that at the beginning of the movie. In fact, that should have been the first scene of the movie, not next to the last. With that minor switch in edit, it tells you who Stanton Carlyle is, not necessarily why he did what he did, but a better understanding of what he did. And it changes the entire complexion of the movie, which is to say, before, when I questioned whether or not Stanton Carlyle killed these other people, because, as I said, the movie doesn't really show him doing it, or show any real ill intent, for that matter, on his part. Moving the scene from the end to the beginning better defines Stanton Carlyle as a character and definitely tells you that this man is a killer, and he's mean, and he's ugly. His soul, what matters most, frankly. And that simple editing change would change this movie drastically, I think, is not even to be disputed. What is would that change have made this movie a success? I don't know, because obviously hindsight is 20/20. I think it would have definitely helped. Another problem is the promotion for this movie. I don't remember it at all. I'm sure there were commercials for this. I just don't remember them. And that's a pity, because all that was needed was a trailer or commercial to the effect of Guillermo del Toro, director of Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth, The Shape of Water, introduces you to his latest monster. Something to that effect. And to illustrate it, you would rely less on clips from the movie than the poster, one of the posters I should say, that was made for the movie, which is a full facial shot of Bradley Cooper. And you would have it slowly darkening, which is to say, being enveloped by shadow as the commercial goes on. It would give viewers a hint of what this new monster is. I think this approach would have been really effective and would have gotten across the evil that resides in this man's heart. As it stands, Nightmare Alley is currently on Hulu, which surprised me. It got there relatively quick. Though to be fair, it also left theaters relatively quick. And it's probably one of the creepier movies Del Toro has ever done. If you get a chance, take a walk down Nightmare Alley. It is shockingly good, unusual, and definitely more brutal than anything you have yet to see from Guillermo del Toro. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, most of his movies have an animal, a person, a body part preserved in a jar. This movie is no different. In any case, this is Brian with ScreenFiles.com in review. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow.